reaction has been fairly clearly racialised, and we saw last night an undifferentiated racist set of, frankly, what felt like pogroms for people of colour, including people who were born here. So those weren't, a detailed engagement with questions of immigration and how borders are managed. That was unrestrained race hate, and that was some of what was fomented. In relation to the specific question around immigration, there are specific questions people will have about migration. It's important to say that in the UK terms, migration policy has, as it were, become more closed and more strict over the last number of years.
And the numbers dramatically down. So the focus will and has, I think, already turned to those who arrive in an irregular way / illegal way, is the term some people use, but then they claim asylum.
There are many people who are claiming asylum legitimately.
Of course.
So, but how those people are managed is a legitimate policy question, but a legitimate response is not racist mobs rampaging through the streets and putting my constituents out. Last night, when I'm looking at a child in his pajamas in a place of shelter and then having to drive them, I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, somebody in their armchair somewhere will be upset at me for how I talk about immigration. I'm sorry. My legitimate concern last night were children who I had to get to safety. And so I just say to these people for whom this is a theoretical thing, they scroll through their phones, think about what the end point is of increasing racist hostility online. And to be clear, people can have strong views about immigration, and it doesn't necessarily mean racism. I accept that, and I would stand over that. I'm not accusing people who have a view on immigration of being racist. But what I am saying is the consequence of some of the disinformation and the nonsense we had over the last couple of days was people being forced from their homes, and we are still not through this in Belfast. So by all means, people can become a conversation about immigration, but it does have to be separate from simply giving voice to racist intolerance. And what we're seeing online is simply racism at times, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us today, Matthew. Our best wishes to everybody involved in it, because it's clearly already been a tough couple of days in Belfast, and there's a lot of nervousness as well, isn't there? Matthew O'Toole, leader of opposition Social Democratic and Labour Party, the SDLP in Northern Ireland, and he's a member of the Legislative Assembly for Belfast South. He touched there, and so did one of our callers, on violence is not monopolised by foreign people in our countries. And the journalist Jane Bradley pointed out that Northern Ireland was dubbed the UK's most dangerous place to be a woman just 2 months ago. 30 women have been violently killed since 2020. One Irishman murdered his pregnant girlfriend and left her face, not an immigrant, an Irishman, left her face down in a dog bowl as a final humiliation after he'd killed her. No riots then. 1:46.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Fueled by understandable concern, the unrest has grown now across the United Kingdom, with the worst violence, of course, the only violence actually, in Belfast.
Any travel from Europe, whether it be from Ireland to the UK, should pass passport control. Everybody's used to it.
They're on board with slogans. A lot of them, they're not on board with solutions.
Go to their local councillors, go to their TDs, go out and have proper protests, not thuggery.
People in government need to be calm and not inflame the situation for political recuperation.
We have politicians to deal with this stuff, but they're obviously missing the mark. They're not addressing the problem.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
A message from TfL.
I saw Alicia's photo in my newsfeed. All I can think of is her family. How they're getting on. If they're getting on. I didn't look when I pulled out, and she never made it home. Sounds crazy, but it felt like her motorbike came out of nowhere. But I know the truth. I didn't look again.
Drivers, take another look, not a life. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
With problem earwax, things don't feel quite right. The NHS recommends using olive oil to help relieve build-up. So Otex offers medical-grade olive oil in both drops and spray. But if you need to act faster, there's Otex Express. However you choose to treat it, choose the earwax treatment brand most recommended by pharmacists. And be clear to hear with Otex. Based on a survey of 200 pharmacies. For verification, visit otexhere.com.
Simone combined her old pensions with Pension Bee.
So I had multiple pensions from various jobs that I have been in, and every 6 months or so I would receive a statement, and I was losing track of all my different pensions and all the different statements. I just wanted one easy way of keeping them all in one place.
At Pension Bee, we believe that when your pension is in a good place, you're in a good place. Download the app or go to pensionbee.com and be pension confident. When investing, your capital is at risk.
Get unlimited video calls with vets from First Vet with Pets in a Pickle. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinapickle.co.uk.
Get iPhone 17 in the Vodafone Business Summer Sale. iPhone 17 is built for business with all-day battery life and the powerful A19 chip for fast, efficient performance. Experience it all on the best network for business and save £300. Hurry, offer ends the 22nd of July. Vodafone Business.
Businesses with up to 9 employees only. Based on iPhone 17 and 24-month unlimited airtime plan. Best network is awarded at the Mobile Industry Awards. Saving calculated over 36 months.
Fever-Tree Ginger Beer. There's no one quite like you, is there? That fiery character. Warming undertones. Mixed, you make a spirited Moscow Mule. But even on your own, you still have the most delectable kick. Fever-Tree. Straight up or mixed. It's a matter of taste.
This is LBC. Message Shelagh Fogarty on WhatsApp now on 0345 6060 973.
Maybe because I'm a journalist and over the years I've spent a lot of time either in court reporting or talking about court cases, that I perhaps forget that some people might not realise that there are certain things we cannot discuss in any detail or any depth because a trial is pending or the criminal justice system has kicked in and somebody's been charged, as in the case of the man accused of the attempted murder 2 nights ago in Belfast. Anthony, I think, is one such person who doesn't understand it. He says, it's so obvious, this is so obvious that you choose to discuss the goings-on last night in Belfast instead of addressing the issues from the night before. Hardly anything mentioned yesterday. Well, Anthony, we took a very long press conference yesterday in relation to the dreadful attack 2 nights ago in Belfast. There are reasons we don't do phone-ins about things like that when cases are live. A case being live meaning anything we say has the capacity to threaten the integrity of any investigation or any trial that may ensue, which is why we're careful. If you mean, when you say the issues from the night before, if you mean immigration and border control, we are going to be talking more about that in some depth, not related to this man particularly, because there's very little that we know about this man and we need to be careful because of the court case, but in relation to the issue more generally. So we are going to be discussing immigration and border control and the common travel area in particular. After 2, I'll be joined by another politician and we'll speak to Lewis Goodall as well. So we're not skirting around any issue, Anthony. And many others are texting in with similar complaints that we're avoiding talking about what happened the night before. We're not. And we won't. We just have to do it in a way that's legal and doesn't interfere with justice. It's an old-fashioned thing. Call the law as it relates to journalism and broadcasting. Sorry, got to follow it. William in Paisley. Hello, William.
Good afternoon, sure. I hope you're well.
I'm fine, thanks.
I just wanted to call about, because obviously yesterday what happened in Northern Ireland was very, very bad, but in Glasgow as well, people were out in the streets causing issues, and I don't know what for.
Last night?
Yeah, there was people protesting Buchanan Street, and then they assaulted people in Buchanan Street who, just because of the colour of their skin, they were screaming at non-white people, send them home. There was groups of masked individuals with black masks running about Glasgow, just causing chaos.
Well, I did see on Tommy Robinson's feed yesterday I don't know whether he produced it or whether AI produced it or whatever, but a list of places where, or a lot of places, which I imagine also included Glasgow, calling people to come out and protest. I wonder whether it was connected to that.
Well, there was these videos of people that were just assaulting people because of the colour of their skin. It's as simple as that. The Independents put out that they locked down a mosque, 3 people were assaulted and have been injured, including a police officer. you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't understand, because my partner, she's from India, and she couldn't get the train home yesterday because they had to shut down the whole town. And I told her, don't get the train home because it's dangerous for you. And evidently it is. Do you know what I mean, man? I just don't understand what the country's coming to, man, where I don't understand what in these people's minds justifies going out and causing chaos in Glasgow because something happened in Ireland, you know what I mean?
Well, but it's because they have decided to equate it with an issue that they want to piggyback in order to cause violence, no?
Well, not really, no, because these people didn't come out and say, well, actually, Glasgow's got a problem with the homelessness, because fair enough you want to say, because of the laws in Scotland is if you're homeless, they have an obligation to house you, the councils. So because of that, we have a disproportionate amount of asylum seekers coming up from England, which has put a strain in the housing stuff, right? So see if they wanted to come out and talk about real issues, that's fair dues, man. There's a place and time for that. But
it shouldn't involve terrifying Indian women in Glasgow. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to resolve anything, is it?
Well, at the end of the day, what makes you think you're justified to put on a black mask? I actually think the police were out of order. That's my main point. I think the police didn't come down hard enough on these people. But I think we've put up with these people for far too long in this country, because they just think they can get away with what they want over the last couple of years. They just going out and causing... At what point did the police have a responsibility to look after us and not to actually just placate these people because they're bigots?
Do you believe they're placating those people?
Well, evidently, because I've seen football fans in Glasgow get battered by the police. We've seen it with the Celtic fans when they won the league. They were able to disperse the people rather quickly. You're telling me a smaller group who's... So there's fans go out to celebrate in the town in Glasgow and have a good time, and there's minor violence. Right? There's maybe two or three groups of people who are fighting amongst themselves as football fans.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do, William, that can go very awry and people can get very badly hurt or die in those kinds of things.
Fair enough, but you're telling me you can't police a group of young men running about hooded up who explicitly went out with the intent to cause chaos.
And are you saying they weren't policed at all? They weren't policed at all?
They weren't policed at all. The police should have ran up to the people, arrested them on the spot, physically got into an altercation with them and threw them back. Because it's terrorism. They people went out with an prior intent, with a political purpose to cause terror to people. That's the definition of terrorism. See, if I told you I've got a political point I want to prove, how are you going to prove that point? I'm going to go wear a mask and attack people. You'd call me a terrorist. These people are terrorists. They should be treated as such.
Did the police not arrive at all?
They arrived, they closed off Glasgow Bridge, they cordoned off St Enoch Centre, and they cordoned off parts of the city, and they started to they didn't directly engage the group of people who are masked up assaulting people. I think they just kind of the same way in Northern Ireland. We'll shut them off and let them disperse themselves. But I don't get that. Because
I'm not sure I get that either. I mean, again, I'm not a police officer and I'm not strategic about things like that. I don't know. But no, I say get stuck in and get them and sort it. But I don't know. I don't know. There may be good safety reasons for not doing that. William, thank you for your call. I wasn't aware of those incidents in Glasgow, so thanks for alerting us to them. That's William in Paisley. Claude has called from Richmond Park. Hello, Claude.
Hi, Sheila.
What did you want to say?
24 hours it's been. I'm really concerned for our Irish brothers and sisters, and I also think that the UK and Ireland are facing two challenges. I think Ireland is heading a step trend in regards to people's discord with public finances and public priorities. I think there is an importance for home investment and home affairs. I think it's concerning when we have two challenges of Brexit, and also I think there's the challenge also with the cost of living for the Irish people. I think it's concerning when you look at the maths that 1.35 trillion goes into the World Health Organization, and where's the investment for people living to their work and where they feel that they're able to make ends meet.
I don't know about World Health Organization funding, but I'm sure that at some level Britain benefits from it. And I'm not quite sure what your central point is, Claude.
I think we need growth. I think we need security. And I think we also need the importance that we have a debate for net migration and where the investments go in and where it's benefiting the people, where people feel listened to. I understand that people are concerned with what Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson are saying. However, they are bringing the different side of what people are feeling, the discord in our society when it comes to control of net migration, control of public investment.
Okay. You think there's an economic element to this, yeah. Thank you, Claude. Maureen has called from Teddington. Hello, Maureen.
Hello, good afternoon, Sheila. Great admirer of your work.
Thank you.
First-time caller. I come from an Irish nationalist background. It breaks my heart to see what's happened in Belfast. My dad was from Derry. I hate saying this, but I think the army should go in now and pack it in. I know that's a really controversial one.
Not going to happen, Maureen. Not going to happen.
I know. It's not
you probably
happen.
Wouldn't say it if those events had happened in Coventry instead of Belfast. So
but I feel there's inertia, what you want to call them, the B Specials, the RUC. We all can go back to his story. And I just feel now it has to be packed in. It really has to be packed in because I do not feel the bobbies over there can handle it. That's how I feel. Well, it breaks my heart to say that. It really does.
But they're not all bobbies. That's, you see some of the people who were out last night.
I know it's a very cliche thing, but I think the psyche of the police there will not be able to handle this.
But nothing that happened. It was awful what happened on the streets of Belfast last night. I'm talking specifically. But nothing that happened there, if it happened here in the UK, would be any different. And the police would deal with that, wouldn't they? You wouldn't be saying send the army into Coventry.
No, I wouldn't. But I just feel with Ireland and the whole psyche of it, I just feel it has to pack it in straight away.
All right. I have to leave for time reasons, Maureen. It's time for the news. But thank you. I couldn't disagree with you more. But anyway, that's okay. Thanks very much indeed for your call. Don't forget, you can watch us live on the LBC app, on Global Player and on YouTube throughout the afternoon. And here on LBC, the usual way as well. We're going to stay with this topic. We'll hear from Lewis Goodall of the newsagents a little later this hour. And we'll get a sense of how politicians are able to help in this situation, help with people's fears in particular. It's 2:00.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 2:00, the family of the man who lost an eye in Monday's stabbing in Belfast have called for calm and praised the contribution of migrants to Northern Ireland. Sudanese refugee Hadi Al-Odid has been remanded in custody, charged with the attempted murder of Stephen Ogilvie. 3 people have been arrested after widespread violence last night, with homes, cars and buses torched. Jamie Corrie's home in East Belfast was destroyed.
And I told them before they lit the fire, I says, "This is my house here." I'm sure they didn't care anyway, did they? They just wanted one of their own. One of their own. I understand they're all angry and all that, but I just lost a home.
Sir Keir Starmer says he will not tolerate the targeting of people because of their background. And the Security Minister, Dan Jarvis, has a message for those perpetrating violence.
You will be caught and you will face the consequences of your actions.
The media regulator Ofcom is warning online platforms of possible legal consequences if their services are used to spread hatred. Most public transport across Northern Ireland will stop at 5 or 6 p.m. tonight in case there's further violence. 2 more men have been jailed over disorder in Southampton last week, following the murder of Henry Novak. Police say they were surrounded by a baying mob throwing stones and bricks. 2 men from Afghanistan and Sudan who steered overcrowded boats full of migrants to the UK have each been jailed for more than 2 years. They're the first people sentenced for a new offence of endangering others during a channel crossing. Iran has carried out attacks on US military bases in Jordan, Kuwait and Bahrain in retaliation for American strikes that hit 2 reservoirs. The US was responding after an Apache helicopter was shot down yesterday near the Strait of Hormuz. LBC's Washington correspondent Simon Marks says the 2 pilots were quickly rescued.
It involved for the very first time the use of an unmanned drone boat that located the crew in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. The Pentagon may have wanted to to send a message to the US military that Washington does understand the scale of the danger they are in.
Donald Trump says Iran has taken too long to negotiate a peace deal and now they will have a price to pay. In the city, a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 9 points at 10,218. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.15. LBC weather, blustery showers with possible thunder in northern and eastern areas. Some pleasant sunny spells this afternoon too. Highs of 11 to 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Matt Hewitt.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Shelagh Fogarty.
Hello there, good afternoon to you. Worth pointing out that the family of Stephen Ogilvie, the victim of Monday night's knife attack in Belfast, have said, and I'm quoting now, "Unrest is not welcome and peaceful protest is the only way forward." Well, the Northern Ireland Secretary Hilary Benn this morning was joined by Chief Constable Police Service of Northern Ireland John Butcher at a press conference earlier on. Hilary Benn discussed the common travel area and the freedoms it gives of movement between Britain and Ireland, both north and south, and concerns around it following the attack on Monday.
The common travel area, as you know, is a long-standing arrangement which brings great benefit to the citizens of the Republic of Ireland and of the United Kingdom, and many people in Northern Ireland go across the non-existent border to go to work, to worship. When I said reflect, I'm talking about the circumstances of this particular case. I spoke briefly last night to Helen McEntee in Ireland about this because, of course, people will be seeking more information about the precise movements of the individual, and my written statement sets out, when it is published, what we know from the suspect themselves about how they said that they arrived. But the common travel area is really important, but we have a job to try and enforce immigration law, and that is why there is already close cooperation between the authorities in the United Kingdom and Ireland in trying. Well, in this particular case, an individual has been accused of committing a very, very serious offence. The fault lies with the person who has been charged and not with others who quite legitimately are able to come to countries across Europe and claim asylum, and if their case is justified, we have a long and honourable tradition in Britain providing shelter to those who are fleeing the most appalling circumstances. In some cases, not that dissimilar to the appalling circumstances we saw on the streets of Northern Ireland last night.
Well, just in case you're not clear on what the common travel area is, it's an arrangement that allows British and Irish citizens to move freely and reside in each other's jurisdictions without routine immigration controls. It covers the UK, Ireland, obviously Northern Ireland as part of the UK, the Isle of Man, Jersey and Guernsey. Now, in my experience, going back and forth to the Republic of Ireland a lot, is I always have to show my passport at an airport or some other form of photo ID. I just take my passport. And we had a caller earlier on, and again, I and family have had this experience as well. When you go on ferries, it's much less rigorous. You're not expected to show your passport or indeed any identification at all other than a ticket that you've bought for the journey. And I wonder whether that is something that needs to be looked at. We can talk more about that this hour. I'm very keen to get your thoughts on it, particularly if you live in Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland. I sensed that Hilary Benn was not nervous, cautious when he was answering that question. Is he right to be cautious about answering questions on changing the arrangements around that common travel area, that invisible border? 0345 6060 973, the number to call. Peter McReynolds joins me, Alliance MLA for East Belfast, the member of the Legislative Assembly is what MLA stands for. He's received death threats online already following these riots. Peter McReynolds, thank you for joining me. Oh, I think, do we have a frozen Zoom line? No, we've got you, I think. Can you hear us? We'll get a better line to Mr. McReynolds and hopefully have a conversation with him. I was thinking he looked rather still there when I saw him. We'll get back to him in a second. Wayne has texted saying, I blame the politicians for these recent troubles in Ireland and across the UK. Their weakness and lack of action to sort out our laughable immigration policies have caused the tensions and the anger. Why won't they sort out illegal immigration with strength and purpose? That's from Wayne in Burnley. Again, illegal immigration is different from asylum, but we have to investigate, individual by individual, I guess, whether somebody is abusing the asylum system in order to disappear into the economy and become an illegal immigrant. And of course, that's a very serious sort of strand of our politics, and that has to be discussed. And feel free to discuss it this hour with me as well. Very keen to hear from people on both sides of the Irish border, and indeed the UK, because it does involve the UK, on the common travel area, and whether you think it needs any change at all. I think we can talk to Peter now. Peter McReynolds, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Sheila.
Did you give it a shake?
I did.
You gave it a shake, and it all works now. As you can tell, I'm very technologically talented, not. Listen, very serious times for you, for your community, for the whole of Northern Ireland, actually, and the UK. I mean, people feel very deeply for those who've been affected directly by that violence. Can you give me a sense of what you have been doing, who you have been meeting in the last, 24 hours?
Well, I suppose first and foremost, can I say that my thoughts are with the man who was brutally and savagely attacked, and his family as well. I mean, I've seen AI images circulating, and I think the brutality that was captured on film will stay in my mind, certainly, as someone who is from North Belfast originally. So it was a savage attack. My thoughts are with him. We need to let the criminal justice system do its thing. Over the last 24 hours, I feel as if I've been just in a whirlwind in terms of groups reaching out to me, journalists reaching out to me, community groups, constituents. The local parish priest, just an hour ago when I bumped into him, was telling me about the messages he was receiving from his parishioners, with men trying to kick down their doors, and the fear that those families felt while that was happening. The images that we've seen on our screens. I mean, I've reached out to TransLink about the man who was just doing his job and was hijacked.
This is the bus company, TransLink, is that right?
Yeah, TransLink is the bus company. One of the sort of major buses, I think it's £750,000, where one of them was hijacked, driven for a bit, and then destroyed, ironically, in front of a Christian church. So the scenes we've seen of just wanton destruction and violence are just awful. And I've been trying to speak to as many people as possible and to appeal for as much calm as possible to make sure that this hopefully doesn't happen tonight.
What are people saying to you when you talk to them?
People are saying that they're scared. It's the uncertainty. I mean, one of our MLAs said to me today that a principal had reached out to her. And I mean, I'm a new father, so these stories resonate with me in a way they never have before. And she said that there was a young child, I think, hadn't slept very well. She was concerned because she'd seen that video and the images were running through her head. That's a horrific thing to hear as a new parent, that a child has seen that. Is telling her teacher that those images are in her head. So it's the fear and the uncertainty. You know, where businesses are braced for the potential for disruption. Again, the police are trying to gauge what's going on so that they're able to react in real time. Because social media is just flooded with these images and these call to arms, giving times and locations for people to meet. I'm hearing about masked men going into businesses, telling them to close. So businesses are having to make that judgment call. You know, do we not? Is this real? Is it not real? It's the uncertainty and the fear that I haven't felt since last year, when this happened last year as well.
In Ballymena.
In Ballymena, and the year before that too, as well, in Belfast city centre. So it's the fear and the uncertainty, I think, more than anything.
How can you, as a politician, because it's a very particular role, isn't it, in these instances? Obviously, you're a member of the community as well, but as a politician, how can you get into those issues that people do sometimes allow to overlap? Fears about immigration and violence, that they think, well, at least someone's acting, at least someone's shouting for us. we know it's a lot more complicated and sinister than that. I certainly believe it's a lot more complicated and sinister than that. But how do you get to those people and say, look, please understand, we can have a sane conversation about immigration. We will do our level best to satisfy what you want from immigration. But you cannot resort to or encourage or even support violence. How do you get to those people, I wonder? I think we might have lost the line again. It's one of those lines that's freezing a little bit. We'll try and get back to that because I think it's important that we hear from leadership voices in those communities as well. And it's great that so many of you from not just Northern Ireland but the Republic of Ireland are calling too. Let's talk to Josh, shall we? Who's called from Doncaster, in fact, an English voice. Hello, Josh.
Hi there, Sheila. You're right.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. What I really wanted to say is that I'm kind of in the position now where, because really, as soon as I found out about all what happened to the poor Irish guy, I could absolutely see exactly what was going, what was going to happen. And so now I'm in the position now where I live in Doncaster. I say that if a black man stabbed somebody to death in Doncaster in a heinous way, that I'm immediately putting my family in the car and I'm going down to another part of the country just to get out, because I know I'd rather us spend the night in the car in the middle of nowhere than kind of just wait, kind of cower behind the door.
I understand. Yeah, you'd be looking at the cheapest travel lodge or Premier Inn you could find, wouldn't you, and just getting the hell out.
Absolutely. And to kind of touch on the question that you asked the previous caller around how do you actually get to a point where you can have a sensible discussion around immigration controls without but also condemning violence. I really think that this is where the increasing radicalization of the social media platforms, particularly X, I think that it's why action and firm action is really needed on that, because I think as anybody who's been on X will say, it's just become a cesspit of just hatred, and it's almost as if it's designed to increase division by showing people graphic imagery. And
that's true, but I also think that what society and politicians, perhaps in particular, because they're the ones who can start to change it, what we haven't got our heads around is that sometimes those loud voices on X, you might not like their methods, I certainly don't. You might not like the way they call people to violence, I certainly do not. But they're not always wrong politically. And I think it's pretty clear that politically, successive governments have not fully got their hands around what the country wants on immigration and what has happened on immigration. And I don't know how we get to a better place on this.
No, and I completely agree with that. And I do think that the government does need to take more action on to address the immigration issue. But at the same time, if all it's going to take is for one for one man to be head of the street, as awful as that is. The last time we saw something like that was when it happened to Lee Rigby, which was over a decade ago. If all it takes is one incident to then kind of lead to riots and people being burned out of their homes, then clearly it's because that's not something that can be dealt with in a logical situation, in a logical way by actually by taking action. But also,
well, it can be. It's the only way to deal with it, because the other alternative is to be violent back to them, and we don't want that. You can police them. I'm not talking about not policing them, but it must be dealt with in a logical way. But that logical way has to be, it seems to me, better politics.
And I would agree that better politics is the overall solution. But what I'm saying is that, is around the communication and how that message actually gets delivered to people. Because, for example, and it's why
and action. It's not just words; it's action.
No, absolutely. But I mean, if you went onto the streets and talked to the people who were rioting last night, okay, what do you feel that the government has done, or what do you think the government should do? They wouldn't be able to tell you, because they're not people who actually follow the day-to-day actions of the government. But they are people who respond to what the message is on social media, which is why it's all about communication. Because because the government can take all sorts of action on things. And if you told the people on the streets last night, actually, net migration's actually come down massively this past year, they'd probably be shocked, because all they're responding to is what they see on social media.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are, since I said that in the last hour, a lot of people are asking for the figures, which I will go through this hour at some point. Thank you very much indeed, Josh, for your call. We have got Peter McReynolds back. We'll talk to him after the break. It's 2:17.
LBC.
In a world full of noise and uncertainty, IG is the investment platform that backs you. Forget the dubious tips from that guy down the pub. Get real-time insights, analysis and tools. No more fat cat brokers clawing your gains. Pay zero commission on your investments. Switch to a platform trusted by British investors for over 50 years. IG. Trade, invest, progress. Your capital's at risk. Other fees may apply.
When you're smiling, don't let missing teeth stop you smiling. At Banning Dental, our experts could restore your beautiful smile with premium dental implants. See online for our price match promise. Banning Dental Group Clinics. Keep on smiling.
Keep on smiling, and the whole world smiles with you.
BanningDental.co.uk.
Get iPhone 17 in the Vodafone Business Summer Sale. iPhone 17 is built for business with all-day battery life and the powerful A19 chip for fast, efficient performance. Experience it all on the best network for business and save £300. Hurry, offer ends the 22nd of July. Vodafone Business.
Businesses with up to 9 employees only. Based on iPhone 17 and 24-month unlimited airtime plan. Best network is awarded at the Mobile Industry Awards. Saving calculated over 36 months.
Shelagh Fogarty on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Talk about playing hard to get. Peter McReynolds is back, an Alliance Party MLA for East Belfast with dodgy Wi-Fi, I think. We've got you back, I'm told, on a nice, strong line. Thank you, Peter. Funnily enough, the question I put to you before your line froze, my caller Josh in Doncaster had a lot to say about it as well. I think, just to remind people what I did ask you before we lost you, how do you get with the people who don't cause this violence, don't seek it, but kind of understand why it's got to this? How do you convince them that politics will work on this issue and for them?
I think it's important to acknowledge that, last night on social media was probably the worst that I've seen it since last year, as I was saying. And I think there are concerns, there are fears, but I find that a lot of these aren't wedded in facts. So I think it's really important that we have political leaders, people in leadership roles, who are honest and clear, direct, not misleading. I don't know if it's intentional misleading or unintentional misleading, but there's just a lot of stories and fears that I see circulating. For example, there was one particular individual who came to me last night and said about an incident that happened over the weekend, about I was condemning that masked individuals were standing jeering at a protest, and they had said, but is this okay? And they shared an image of people of Arabian descent, visibly, and they were masked with Palestinian flags and things like that. If they had taken a couple of seconds, put that through Google image search, they'd have found out that it didn't happen in Belfast like they were making out. It happened in New York in, I think, 2023. You're able to, because social media plays such a prominent role in our lives now, it's so much easier to mislead people if you don't take a few seconds just to fact check. And I think it's important that politicians do that with people.
I agree with you, but it's a valid question, isn't it, about the equality under the law when it comes to face coverings? That is a valid question.
Oh, absolutely, it is.
Yeah. Wherever it
happens. And we were very contradictory about that as well, as a party whenever that happens in Northern Ireland. But you're spreading images that happened in New York a number of years ago, so it's not for a conversation.
And can I ask you as well about these threats that you've had since the attack on 2 nights ago on Monday night? Is it unusual for you to get this kind of thing? Has it gone beyond anything that's happened before?
That is the first time I've ever received messages like that. I've been involved in politics now since 2017, so nearly 10 years. And I'm pretty hardened by it, so it's usually water off a duck's back in terms of people being aggressive or whatever. But that's the first time that I've felt the need to speak to the police. I'm a new father. I'm married. My wife is sleeping upstairs. And 2 messages came through, one of which was saying, we're coming for you and your family. The other said, you're next. And that's the first time I've ever felt the need that this is, or felt that it's crossed a line.
Yeah.
Disagree with me, happy enough to have that conversation. It's an important part of politics. But that's the first time that I think this is sinister. And you would never want to ignore that. And then something bad happens and you worry about that.
It would be sinister even if last night hadn't happened, but it's even more so because last night happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and obviously your desire to be safe and to make sure that your family's safe is completely understandable. Well, listen, thank you. We got there in the end. We got a good conversation in the end. Thank you very much, Peter. Peter McReynolds, an Alliance Party MLA, member of the Legislative Assembly for East Belfast. Let me get to your calls. Paul has called from Derry. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Sheila. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, yeah. What's on your mind?
It's just a couple of things. One of your callers there had mentioned about. I heard your gasp when she mentioned it about putting
the army,
British troops, onto the streets, and it's ironic that she's actually originally her family's from Derry that she would say something like that. So, but I just on this border control thing, like I can't see like where I'm travelling for work at the minute. I'm in Strabane and I'm right on the border, and I can now go over the border and get like freely. Get me diesel for 20 pence cheaper than what I can get it for in the north.
Right.
So
you're going to do that.
Yeah. So if I don't see how, from I suppose a border control, how you could even only one for that, but two, obviously, then probably the violence that it would bring to bring border patrols back in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not really sure how they kind of square that circle as far as border control goes in the north of Ireland.
And again, the full details of the alleged attackers' movements from Sudan to eventually Belfast will come out in the wash, I'm sure. But the police have already said that it's their understanding that he came from Sudan, to Paris to Dublin to Belfast, and hence in the UK. At which point in the UK, in Belfast, he got leave to remain, not indefinite leave to remain, as I understand it, but leave to remain. It takes a lot longer to get indefinite leave, I think. It's all too easy, really, isn't it? With probably some fake identification, something like that. We don't know, but
as I say, you can move freely now. I suppose it's one of the benefits of where we are, I suppose, as well, from investment and economically and things like that. But like even to touch on like the violence last night, and one of your callers, I can't remember, was it Eamon, had mentioned that like they're classified as paramilitaries, but really they're just
gangsters.
It's gangsters.
It was Eamon, yeah.
And you look at, you could pick up any paper over here, whether it's Belfast Telegraph, whatever, and a lot of these people are in it at the weekends and things like that. So I don't see how the police can crack down on this more, even before it gets to the point where it got to last night. And even when it gets to that point last night, going back to what you said earlier, get in there and get stuck in. Why is it being left that, really a lot of them kids are forcing them back
What
into
I don't
these
understand
areas?
is how they weren't able to, again, all due respect to the police, difficult situation. I don't know how to police, so I'm asking questions just as a concerned citizen, not an expert. But I don't understand why, given there was so much pre-warning of trouble, the police weren't just in a position to see them off.
I suppose you could go to, they're being underfunded and everything else, and, that's fine, but surely there's enough people or enough
You can
police
use a water
officers
cannon in Northern Ireland, am I right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they do it, and it doesn't help over here as well too that politicians in this part of the world can't even agree on what day it is. Never mind, looking at how the police should run or how public services should run and everything else. Yeah, I don't think migration is a completely separate point of view to kind of what they disagree on a daily basis, which doesn't really help people here.
And on the border, would you, and the Common Travel Area, would you go along with what Hilary Benn, the Northern Ireland Secretary, said when he said, look, this is a horrible incident, but it is an incident involving one man under victim, of course, and these riots are what they are. You know, he wasn't making light of them at all, but he was saying that the border and the way it's managed is a very precious thing for the whole of Ireland and the UK. And he didn't seem like a man who had an appetite to change that in any way. Can you think of any way it could be tightened up without it becoming full-on border control, visible border control? Because it's clearly a loophole here, isn't it, when it comes to asylum or migration?
Yeah, like, I don't know. We had a holiday home in Donegal, so, you know, I remember even when I was a kid, you used to get stopped and they would check, like,
yeah, I remember that as a kid.
And things like that. Yeah. So I honestly don't know how to do it, but I think it just stinks. What happened was awful, and I hope the fella pulls through.
Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, what happened last night just stinks of hypocrisy, because there's been a number of women who have been murdered here by local people.
Nobody riots.
And no one's rioted.
So it's about racism.
Well, yeah, I'd imagine so.
Thank you, Paul, for your call. That's Paul in Derry. Let's hear from Sarah in Reigate. Hi, Sarah.
Hello there. Thank you for taking my call. So I live in London, and what has happened is absolutely horrendous. But I would really appreciate if everyone not listening to this just listens honestly. I genuinely feel like the power lies with the politicians. It doesn't lie with the police. It lies with the politicians. And controversial as this view might be, I feel like they are deliberately and consciously going the opposite way with immigration to oppress immigrants in this country and to annoy and to basically stir up hatred and division within this country, because I don't see how a speed camera can take a detailed photograph of my face and then locate me, send me a letter, and the politicians can't do anything. They're not even listening to the British people constructively. I understand, obviously, you know, immigration is an issue, but even the way that the conversation is had, never mind even trying to do anything about it. I do believe they have the power to control immigration. I feel like it's a conscious decision to spread hatred.
Well, it's important. Well,
hang on. They won't do anything about it until, let's say, for example, these innocent immigrants, because it's black and brown people. This has nothing to do with that, gentlemen. This is just people who are racist and hatred and want to put that hatred on immigrants. If, for example, those immigrant communities, just for example, decide we're going to fight back, then the law will want to do something about it. Let's not make a mistake as to understand what is actually happening here. They have the power, but they're refusing to do anything constructive about it, or to even listen to the white British people and have decent conversations with them.
Well, it doesn't have to just be the white British people. You want any British people to be listened to, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, but it's important to separate off types of immigration and migration, isn't it, really? Because a huge amount of immigration into this country is done by people who we've invited into this country.
Absolutely.
And
my
need
mother was
in this
invited
country.
here. My mother was settled in Kenya. She's accomplished. She's an accomplished black woman with a master's and a PhD, and she was invited here 20-something years ago. She was invited here to come and teach religious education based on her experience and her knowledge. We didn't apply to come, and she was invited. But the problem is these people on the streets have no distinction, and they have no interest to distinguish whether between illegal. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, well, racists don't, no, but we can in the discussions that we have, that's for sure. Thank you very much, Sarah. Sarah calling from Reigate. It's 2:31. Coming up after the news headlines, I'll be joined by Lewis Goodall, presenter of Sundays with Lewis Goodall on LBC and co-host of the Newsagents podcast as well. He's in Belfast. You can watch us live on the LBC app, Global Player, and on YouTube. Let's get some headlines first, though, from Matt Hewitt.
The family of a man stabbed in North Belfast on Monday night have thanked passers-by and emergency services who saved his life. Stephen Ogilvie lost an eye in the attack. A 30-year-old Sudanese refugee has been remanded in custody, charged with attempted murder. 3 arrests were made during violence in Northern Ireland last night, where homes and vehicles were set alight. 2 men who steered small boats across the Channel have been jailed for a new offence of endangering others. The pair from Afghanistan and Sudan admitted piloting overcrowded craft bringing migrants to the UK. And Donald Trump claims Iran's taken too long to negotiate a deal to end the war and will have to pay the price. Tehran says it will reassess peace talks with Washington following tit-for-tat strikes overnight. LBC weather, blustery showers with possible thunder in the north and east of the UK. Some pleasant sunny spells this afternoon too, highs of 11 to 16 degrees.
LBC.
With problem earwax, things don't feel quite right. The NHS recommends using olive oil to help relieve build-up, so Otex offers medical-grade olive oil in both drops and spray. But if you need to act faster, there's Otex Express. However you choose to treat it, choose the earwax treatment brand most recommended by pharmacists. And be clear to hear with Otex. Based on a survey of 200 pharmacies. For verification, visit otexear.com.
Buying a home on a holiday park was the retreat you always wanted. But then came unexpected site fee increases. And that was before the dramatic loss in value. If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, you may have been missold. holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive thousands in compensation. Text ASSIST to 78900. That's ASSIST to 78900.
A message from TfL.
I saw him in the local news a few days after. His name's Rakesh. They had to put him into a coma just because I didn't look again at that turning. He had 2 kids. How did I not see his bike ahead of me? Well, I didn't look again. He didn't make it.
Drivers, take another look, not a life. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
In a world full of noise and uncertainty, IG is the investment platform that backs you. Forget the dubious tips from that guy down the pub. Get real-time insights, analysis and tools. No more fat cat brokers clawing your gains. Pay 0 commission on your investments. Switch to a platform trusted by British investors for over 50 years. IG. Trade, invest, progress. Your capital's at risk. Other fees may apply.
Shelagh Fogarty on LBC. Text 84850.
I noticed that Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister, Sinn Féin politician and First Minister of Northern Ireland, has been, along with many other politicians as well, I've just spotted hers on social media, a comment, saying the scenes we all saw last night were nothing short of disgraceful. None of this is about community, it is thuggery. Plain and simple is how she puts it. Talk to Lewis Goodall in a few minutes. He's in Belfast for LBC and for the newsagents too, but get back to your calls before then. Ruben has called from Norwich. Hi, Ruben.
Hi there. So I'm an immigrant myself. I came here legally, and I can understand why the local people are getting really, really irate. They're not being listened to. It's quite obvious there's certain things that can be done. Most of the so-called illegal immigration comes through France. Sheila?
Legal or illegal?
What I call illegal immigration is when they come over on the boat, because there is a right and a wrong way. I had to come through the right way. I had to prove I could speak English. I had to do a life in the UK test. I had to do all these.
Where did you come
boxes.
from? Sorry, where did
you come from? South Africa.
Right.
But I had to tick all these boxes to prove that I could get here, and then I had to live on my own. There was no assistance. And my wife is British, English, and we had to sleep on like an inflatable bed. She was 7 months pregnant. There was no assistance, but we had to make do until I could build us up. And I can understand why the people are getting upset, because if you've got a lot of the immigrants that's coming over on the boats, they're coming through France. Why cannot checkpoints be set up in France? They're getting a lot of money. And then, you can do the back checks over there. They're in a safe country. They know they don't need to risk the channel. They don't need to. They're right there. They just need to go, right, can we come over? Here's our papers, whatever we need to do to prove ourselves. And then come through. If they deserve sanctuary, then come through that way. And appreciate it. Appreciate the people that work here and just want to get on with their lives. But it's building up. The pressure is building, and I don't think people are taking it seriously.
You're raising. It is building up. You're raising points that many have about how we might go about this when it comes to the people who cross the Channel. And there are new attempts, aren't there, that haven't quite kicked in full yet, for greater cooperation on French territory to work out who might come over and who might not. So that's kind of beginning that work. But I think you're right to say that there has to be a better way of doing this, because, you know, we can't have what we've got with the boats for the sake of the people in the boats as much as anyone else. You know, it's just horrendous.
Plus, you can't just there's a reason the country has a border. There's a reason all countries have a border. If people are coming in and breaking across the border, that is invasion. If you're being invited in, that's something else.
International law says however they got here, when they apply for asylum, they have the right to apply for asylum. And we can't just ignore international law, can we, as it stands?
That's why if they, I know you've got embassies in France and you've got embassies in Spain. If they go through the right way, they don't need to pay thousands of pounds to come here on boats and stuff. They can just go and file applications. There's embassies. That's part of the UK. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe an embassy is considered UK soil.
Yes, you're right. In some instances, you're right. But I think there are certain nations where it's not as straightforward as just popping to the embassy. So if you're, for example, an Afghan person trying to get out, particularly a woman maybe trying to get out, popping to the embassy isn't really an option because they'll know what you're trying to do.
No, I understand that. So what I'm saying is, like, if they come from Afghan or Pakistan or wherever they're coming from and they go into France, they're not in those countries anymore. They're now in France. They have a safe haven. All the money that's going to try and get France to stop the boats from coming across can be applied to set checkpoints, maybe a bit of some tents for temporary accommodation.
We've done the tent thing. We've done the tent thing, and that was stopped for humanitarian reasons.
For humanitarian reasons, and yet there's people living on the streets over here.
I know. So
I think
you're thinking
quandaries that people are getting because it doesn't make sense, and if something doesn't make sense, there's got to be a reason.
But Ruben, have you seen how these riots, not just the ones last night, but the ones in Southampton and the ones after Southport, have you seen how they are drummed up? It isn't a case of normal law-abiding citizens going, goodness me, I've had enough of this government, I'm going to go and march on the streets. It's not quite that, is it?
Sheila, I'll be honest with you. I actually came across, there was some 5 Pillars, it was called. They posted a video of a Southampton protest. And it was on the front line. And I'll tell you what, it made me actually question a lot of things. So basically, the front lines, they were shouting something, but there were these agitators. And you could actually see the one bloke, he had his hood up, and he positioned himself behind the front line, and a whole bunch of other people in hoods sort of came in at the same time. Then there was one guy, he had 2 of his hands balled into fist, and he sort of did this little tempo sort of punch on the person in front of him, and they all surged forward at the same time, shoving people forward towards the police. There was one youngster, he had a union flag around his neck. He was pushed off balance at first, and he was a bit confused. Then you see how he's trying to push back to stop that, and they got shoved towards the police, and then some guy in a blue hood sort of pushed through and kicked at the police shields, and then they all sort of pulled back while the police started ramming at everyone.
Yeah, well, that's mayhem, isn't it? That's exactly what those who foment violence want. They want mayhem and confusion. We can't be surprised when it happens. It's what they want. Protest is a very different thing. People can take to the streets to protest and to call for things. Of course they can. But once it tips into violence, and certainly the kind of violence we saw in Southampton and even worse last night in Belfast, terrified people being burnt out of their homes, this is nothing we want to see in our great country. This is nothing we want to see because the veneer of civilization is very, very thin in some people, and you don't want them winning, that's for sure. Thank you, Ruben. Ruben in Norwich. David has called from Belfast. Hi, David.
Hi, Sheila. Hi. Sheila, Maureen made my blood boil.
I was just shocked, really. I was shocked.
And I was 7 when the trouble started in Northern Ireland. And I remember my mother made tea for the British soldiers, and I'm a Protestant, by the way. And we got joyrides around the streets on the Army Land Rovers. Now, if she wants Army in this, I know it's not going to happen, because once the British soldiers step, I have nothing against the British soldiers, but if she's calling for that, a nice head feet in Northern Ireland, and starting fire rubber bullets and kill Protestant people, they're going to have another bloody Sunday on their hands, and worse. So she should be, if she's from Londonderry, she should know better, and I'm furious at her, absolutely furious. And another thing, Sheila, they're all thugs. They're all thugs, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's all paramilitaries that's behind it all. I wouldn't be surprised if it's all paramilitaries that's behind it. I went through all this in the 1970s and in the 1980s. This is what it was like every single day going to work or going... I remember when I worked in Belfast, bombs were going off left, right and centre, but we thought nothing of it because that was a normal thing to us.
You had to live with it,
to live with it, but it's horrendous what's going on, and they are all thugs, and I shouldn't be doing it. I have lovely black friends and coloured friends, and I grew up with them in Belfast at the height of the Troubles. But the current generation now, I mean, I was a bit better growing up, but see the current generation on both sides, nationalists and unionists, and these working class areas, bitterness has bred into them for what happened in the past.
By whom? By families? By their family?
Yes, by families. They're bred into in these working class estates. You've seen Ranton and Derry there over Easter, and it's spread into them in Republican and Unionist areas and Loyalist areas. It's spread into them the bitterness, and it's just not about. There is a genuine problem with migrants. I understand that, but the English have a lot to answer for here too. The English have a lot to answer for because they're coming across the channel to England, and England can't cope with the situation because there's so many of them, and they're sending them to other parts of the UK.
Well, they're not just going to. They're not just coming across the channel. This is why we wanted to talk a bit about the common travel area, and whether there is anything that can be done there, because they can come relatively easily to Ireland, especially if they have some fake ID, which the smugglers are providing for them. Albanian smugglers were found to be providing fake Italian identification for people. That meant they had freedom of movement. They could get to the Republic of Ireland. They could seek asylum in the Republic of Ireland if they want, of course. But often they go to Belfast and seek asylum in the UK, because that opens up the whole of the UK to them if they get leave to remain, which it looks as though the individual who's facing these charges of attempted murder, according to police, did manage to do when he got to Belfast. And if he has leave to remain in the UK, he has leave to remain in the UK. Thank you very much, David, for your call. David in Belfast. It's 2:45.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Fueled by understandable concern, the unrest has grown now across the United Kingdom, with the worst violence, of course, the only violence actually, in Belfast.
Any travel from Europe, whether it be from Ireland to the UK, should pass passport control. Everybody's used to it.
They're on board with slogans. A lot of them, they're not on board with solutions.
Go to their local councillors, go to their TDs, go out and have proper protest, not thuggery.
People in government need to be calm and not inflame the situation for political recuperation.
We have politicians to deal with this stuff, but they're obviously missing the mark. They're not addressing the problem.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
At Waitrose, you can now get your everyday favourites at new, lower prices. So, eggs are lower, apples are lower, peppers are lower, peanut butter, garlic, beef mince, ketchup, frozen peas, onions, pesto, mushrooms, chicken thighs and pasta are all lower, and yep, you guessed it, lower. Get all these and more everyday favourites at new, lower prices at Waitrose. Waitrose, the home of food lovers. Selected lines and stores, subject to availability.
Get iPhone 17 in the Vodafone Business Summer Sale. iPhone 17 is built for business with all-day battery life and the powerful A19 chip for fast, efficient performance. Experience it all on the best network for business and save £300. Hurry, offer ends the 22nd of July. Vodafone Business.
Businesses with up to 9 employees only. Based on iPhone 17 and 24-month unlimited airtime plan. Best network is awarded at the Mobile Industry Awards. Saving calculated over 36 months.
Before you renew your private health insurance, are you sure you're getting the right cover at the right price? At the Private Healthcare Company, we compare a range of leading providers to find cover matched to your needs, with a dedicated representative who'll support you from start to finish. Search the Private Healthcare Company today and see how much you could save on your renewal. The Private Healthcare Company, your personal private healthcare broker.
A message from TfL.
I saw Alicia's photo in my newsfeed. All I can think of is her family. How they're getting on. If they're getting on. I didn't look when I pulled out, and she never made it home. Sounds crazy, but it felt like her motorbike came out of nowhere. But I know the truth. I didn't look again.
Drivers, take another look, not a life. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Global Player is home to fantastic podcasts like The Sports Agents. Join Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman as they take you inside the action as football returns for one of its biggest seasons yet. With last-minute winners, transfer sagas and behind-the-scenes secrets. You've seen it happen. Now find out why. The Sports Agents with Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman. Listen now on Global Player.
Shelagh Fogarty on LBC. Listen on your smart speaker. Just say, play LBC.
Let me get to your calls. Don't forget you can watch us live on the LBC app, Global Player, and on YouTube as well. David's call from Tottenham. Hello, David. What's on your mind? Is it about the common travel area and borders and immigration, or just the events themselves last night, or a bit of all of that, maybe?
Bit of both. I think the issue here is politicians. The politics that now we've got nowadays, they're not doing what they're meant to do. They're very focused on how they can make their party better. The system nowadays, there's just so many young people who have not got jobs. They're coming out either from studying or they're not even going to study because they can see that the future is not good for them. The costs are just going up. We'll go onto the benefit system because it's easy to get onto it nowadays.
Yes.
Go onto it. They've not got jobs. They're sitting on social media all day where Elon Musk can tweet what he wants or Tommy Robinson. That's what they're seeing. And
some young people, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Sorry, my mistake.
No, it's important to say, yeah.
And these young people are just, they may not always specifically be right on the right side of the politics, but they're being pulled there because that's what they're seeing. They're bored. They can see that's where the action is. I can go outside and get a riot. I'll go outside and riot.
They riot because it's fun and they get a kick out of it.
They get a kick out of it. It's someone who's working isn't going to go out there and riot and start messing up their jobs, their future, their career.
Well, not entirely true. Plenty of people who rioted in Southport had jobs. Plenty of people who've been rioting in Southampton, two of whom were charged today, have jobs as well. I mean, these are often people with lives, and they're just prepared to put their lives completely on the line. Their reputations.
Correct, but I think if you look at now from the videos that were out there from yesterday, the majority of people that I saw were young people.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying what you're saying. I'm just saying that it is always bizarre to me who else goes out on these things.
Correct, and I think that's where the issue is, and I think a lot of people as well will see. I might lose my job. Do you know what? I can go on to the benefit system. It pays enough. I see it because I work as a lettings agent, and I can see the amount of people getting from the benefit system. It's more than a lot of people are getting more than what my wage is just on the benefit system. And if they're not working and they're at home, again, the benefit system is an amazing system because it helps people. I think a lot of people are seeing, I won't have a job. I'll get the benefit system. They'll pay for my house. They'll pay for what I don't need to do, and everyone else can work.
Do you think that people realise how tough it is to solve some of these migration problems, or do you think they're so frustrated they just want like a click of the fingers and it's resolved, and it's just not that easy?
That's where we are these days. Everyone wants to click on the finger. They want to be able to order on Amazon and arrive the same day, not the next day.
Order a political solution on Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone wants it today. It's not going to be fixed today. And if we're ever going to come in next, if it's going to be Reform, Conservative, the Green, or even Labour, they're not going to fix this problem tomorrow. It's going to take time. and we have to be patient and allow that process to work. And just getting angry and rioting and damaging people's property or businesses isn't going to help the process.
But people have to be listened to as well, don't they? And there's clearly
100%.
been
I'm
a period
upset.
where that people
I'm
aren't.
upset about the immigration process. I see it myself. You know what I mean? Everything is just gone crazy. But am I going to go out there and riot, or am I going to go there and damage? Or am I going to vote? Am I going to vote Labour, Conservative next time? Probably not, because they're both not done what we wanted.
Yes.
But the issue is, what are we going to do? Are we going to fight? Are we going to cause? Are we going to cause, you know what I mean, a civil war out here in the UK?
And imagine, they're on my mind today a bit, imagine being just an ordinary working immigrant in this country, whether you came here 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. There's one African family who had to leave one of their houses last night who'd been there for 20 years in Belfast. Imagine being one of those immigrants, or any immigrant in this country, and hearing how often that word is just bandied around as a negative rather than the obvious positive it can also be, and often is.
Yeah.
It's become...
It's frightening for them.
Yeah, of course it is. It's frightening for me to see, because, you know, that doesn't mean we should ignore what's wrong with our immigration system or our asylum system. No, we shouldn't. And we have been over the years.
Immigration is good. You're bringing in people who have got careers and can help us, but it has to be the right way, and that's what needs to be changed. Allowing people to come the right way. I see with friends who are trying to bring in their spouses because they're married, they're currently stuck out the UK because they can't come into the UK.
Yeah.
The process is costing them crazy amount of money. Years. He's telling me the wait, from what he's been told, is a 3-year wait now just to get in. So they normally he's going backwards and forwards because his spouse can't come in, and that process somehow needs to be done quicker, to allow these people to come in and allow the right people to come into this country and help the economy.
OK, thanks very much indeed, David. David in Tottenham. Kingsley in Palmer's Green. Hello.
Yeah, hi, Sheila. Like I said to your producer, I really want to know why we're talking about immigration again and the small boats and immigration numbers when this is simply racism. What happened last night was racism. Any far-right protest that results in violence is because of racism. They're not trying to separate the legal people from the illegal people. This is just on-site color.
Yes,
black, brown,
but they are using, those who do try to incite violence are using problems with immigration, the immigration system, the politics of it all, to leverage violence. That's why we're talking about it, and also, you know, it is a legitimate question to say, is this, I'm not talking about the man in Belfast who's charged with the attack. It's legitimate to look at routes that people take and ask if it's good for our country that people use these routes. Are we checking enough who they are? These are legitimate questions.
They are, but these are things that, like they said yesterday, they are meant to be dealt with by the politicians. So why don't they take their riots to the parliament and do that to the politicians? Don't pick on the people.
Yeah.
Don't pick on people that are here based on what the politicians decided in the first place. They let them in. And the illegal ones, they shouldn't let them in. It's pretty straightforward. Lastly, what I want to say is, why are we tolerating...
It's not straightforward, Kingsley, because even that, sorry if I can, that sentence you just said covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah, I know.
Illegal immigrants, just don't let them in. It's as simple as that. Well, no, you become an illegal immigrant once you're in, and then you go into the dark economy and you're not here legitimately. In the meantime, you can perfectly legitimately be an asylum seeker.
Yeah. Okay, last thing I want to say, when Trump incited an insurrection in America, it was obviously impeached and everything. It didn't work, blah, 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 blah. If he wasn't the president, they probably would have arrested him. Why do we allow people like Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage and people, why are they not being arrested? They're blatantly inciting violence and like pure code rage. Why is this still standing there? Can I say one thing more?
Yes, of course.
There are 3 types of black, brown people in this country. There was the lady that called earlier on, she wrote the book, and her stance is like, you know what, I'm going to stay, I'm going to fight, I'm going to have a cup of tea with her, blah, 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 blah. And then you have the other people that, like me, that want to leave the country. I'm leaving this year because I can't stand it anymore.
Where are you going?
And then you have the other group of people that are going to fight back. If this doesn't stop, I can see a civil war looming this year or next year, because there's people that are not going to take this sort of stuff. And there's people that are going to turn the other cheek, like in the Bible, like what they read. And there's people like me that are going to say, you know what, I can't be bothered to fight because it's pointless. I'm too proud. I love myself. I'm leaving. This is not the only country on the planet. And I was born here. But I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Nigeria and came back when I was 18. So I've got this accent. No problem. But that is not my issue. I don't have any issues with people like because of the way I speak. I feel for people that are going through what I have to go through every day as a black man.
Which is what?
The looks, the condescending looks, the sticking the phones in the handbags. Anytime I stay in an English area that's affluent...
What, because they think you're going to steal it?
Exactly.
God.
I'm 5'8.5", about 70 kilograms. I'm not threatening, if you want to talk about threatening. Yeah. I don't dress with a hoodie or anything. No. I'm 52 years old, going 53. But I get this all the time. So you can imagine, I'm tired. I'm proud.
Yeah.
I'm egotistical. I'm proud as a black man. So I want to go. So I'm just going to go. And after that, I'm just going to keep on watching the country destroying itself. But that's what's going to happen. It's going to destroy itself.
Why are you so certain of that?
Because the far right and the people more on the with that mentality, everybody go, they're more than the people that don't want it to happen. Do you understand? So we have the sleepers. So the sleepers are the guy that goes to work every morning and smiles at the black neighbor or whatever, but in his mind he's thinking, you know what, I don't really like you.
I disagree with you. I think there are a lot of people who are racist in this country, for sure, which is why I said yesterday I thought Kemi Badenoch was speaking too soon when she said, it was the best country for an ethnic man or a black person, she said, to live in. Not necessarily, and in large numbers not. But I think most people, the majority of people, Kingsley, are not violent or seditious and want to go out and riot. That's my strongly held view about this country. Most people aren't going to go out, and there isn't going to be a civil war. I don't think. Thanks, Kingsley. I wish you well when you leave, if you leave. Amy's called from Camden. Hi, Amy.
Hi there.
What did you want to say, Amy?
I'm from Belfast myself, and obviously the attack that happened was awful, but the fact that this attack's being used as a scapegoat for violence against something that everyone is angry about, it's, the austerity that everyone is feeling. And I think seeing the PSNI's reaction to white rioters, unionists, loyalists who are being let rampant, considering there's things that I've seen in London where there is a squat eviction happening not far from me, an illegal one, where the people that were peacefully defending the squat had their limbs broken by the batons used by the meth. So it's just sort of, just angry about how it's being let run.
You wanted more intervention from the police. Yeah, you're not the first person this hour to say that. Thank you very much, Amy, for your call. That's Amy, who's from Belfast, but calling from Camden. We'll talk to Lewis Goodall a little later this hour. He's in Belfast. But I want to hear from you. Call in, because Laura Trott, the Shadow Education Secretary, is here to take your calls, and we will focus on any number of aspects of online safety. We know the Prime Minister was talking about it in PMQs today. He focused on the nudity stuff that he was talking about earlier in the week, saying he wants to work with tech companies, but if they don't work with them, they'll wade in and legislate against children having access to those things. And there's more to come, he said, alluding, I think, to the under-16 social media ban, whether or not that comes in. But there's plenty more to talk about, not least the incitement we've seen on social media overnight. You can watch it all live on the app, Global Player, and on YouTube.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 3 o'clock, the family of the man injured in Monday's knife attack in Belfast have said they don't want the crime to divide people or fuel hostility. Stephen Ogilvie has lost an eye. Journalist Gilly Beattie has been reading through a statement from his family.
They're very clear that they need some time to reflect on what has happened. They're trying their best to help him start his road to recovery. He's got very serious injuries. His other eye, his right eye, is very seriously damaged as well. But they've spoken out and said not in our name.
A Sudanese man who came to Northern Ireland as a refugee in 2023 via Paris and Dublin has appeared in court charged with attempted murder. Protests last night turned to violence, with cars and homes set on fire.
We know that a child as young as 2 months old had to flee the home because of safety concerns.
That's Belfast's Lord Mayor, Roisha Moira Donnelly, who says she's received death threats following Monday's attack. Bus and train services across Northern Ireland will shut down early this evening because more protests are expected. The UK media regulator, Ofcom's, reminded tech companies of their responsibility not to allow the incitement of violence. 2 men who steered overcrowded small boats across the Channel have been jailed under a new offence. The Afghan and Sudanese men were given sentences of around 2 years. The crime of endangering others during a journey by sea to the UK came into force in January. Sarah Dineley from the Crown Prosecution Service says today's sentence sends a clear message.
If you put your hand on the tiller of a small boat crossing the Channel, you'll go to prison, and you'll be in prison from the moment you set foot on UK soil to the moment you are deported from the UK.
Iran's army has warned of more severe and widespread attacks if the US steps up its attacks. Tehran says it'll reassess talks with Washington after both countries carried out strikes last night. Donald Trump's warning the country will have to pay the price for failing to negotiate a deal to end the war. Nicholas Hopton's a former UK ambassador to Iran.
The President of the United States seems increasingly trapped in a war of his own making, of course. This is a war of choice, and struggling to find ways to bring it to a conclusion.
And more than 1,000 phones and other devices have been lost or stolen from the Ministry of Defence since 2024. None have been found, with worries about the security implications. In the city, a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 7 points at 10,220. The pound buys $1.34 and €1.16. LBC weather, blustery showers with possible thunder in northern and eastern areas. Some pleasant sunshine this afternoon too, highs of 11 to 16 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Matt Hewitt.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Shelagh Fogarty.
Hello there, good afternoon to you. We're still keeping a close eye on events in Belfast, and we'll speak to Lewis Goodall of the newsagents a little later this hour. But I'm joined in the studio by Laura Trott, Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative MP for Sevenoaks. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, thank you for having me.
You're here to take calls from our listeners and callers on all aspects, really, of social media and the impact it's having on our lives, especially the lives of children and young people. And there is so much to talk about, isn't there? Before we get on to some of those big issues that we've talked a lot about on LBC, just briefly on Belfast, and particularly the use of social media in situations like this. We saw it in Southampton as well. To what degree can the government or police do much about these things? Because a lot of the people who do the inciting or the encouraging, they do it just about on the right side of the law, don't they? And yet it has the same effect.
But this is one of the reasons why I've been so passionate about a social media ban overall, because actually what young people have become normalised to is violence every single day, right? I was in a school directly after the Charlie Kirk murder. Every single child I spoke to had seen it from multiple angles. That's not normal. That is not normal. No. Yeah, exactly. And so they're seeing this every single day. When you talk to young boys, right, 13, 14 years old, they see knives on their social media feed all the time. This is not good for them. It's creating a culture which is unhealthy, and it's creating a culture which is dangerous. And this is why we need to do something about it.
And it's literally just popped up on the television as I'm talking to you, the images of the attack that took place in Belfast 2 nights ago. We know, I haven't seen the video graphically.
No, neither have I.
Deliberate choice.
Yeah, me too.
I know many people have. And one of our guests in the first couple of hours, who's a Northern Ireland politician, told me that he's been speaking to children who'd seen it, parents whose children had seen it and couldn't sleep and were upset and were distressed. Is it time for more control over that?
Yes, but this is why we have to take children off social media, because we have tried policing content through the Online Safety Act, and frankly, it hasn't worked. And so the only way that I can see that we can protect children from things which they just shouldn't see, and I hope that everyone listening to this would agree that children should not see, like, actual violent instances in real time being played out in front of them. The only way to do that is to remove them from social media. No other way has worked.
Yeah, and when you're used to it, when it's always been part of the background, it's less shocking perhaps to you, but it's still doing you harm. But I remember, having not been brought up on social media, I remember the first time I'm not going to describe it in any detail, but I remember the first time I saw violence the like of which I had never seen, even as a news journalist in my time as a journalist. I saw it accidentally while scrolling on Twitter years ago, probably about 15 years ago, something like that. And it was so shocking to me. It was in the Syrian war. It was so shocking to me that I instinctively threw my phone. I just flung my phone away from me as if to say, oh, God, get that away from me, you know. And now, if you're seeing that every day or seeing stuff akin to that every day, you are numbed to it. You can be numb to it.
Exactly. It becomes normalised. And that is the most dangerous thing that we can do in our society. Normalise violence, normalise aggression. And when you are a young boy, if you are seeing people, everyone is carrying around a knife on your social media feed, frankly, everyone is using a knife on your social media feed, you think that is normal. That is so dangerous.
We've seen overnight people like Elon Musk, JD Vance, and not just overnight for the first time, really poking their noses in a way that is often untruthful about our country. Not always, but often untruthful about our country, and essentially drumming up action from people that ends in violence or rioting. We can't do much about that online, can we?
We can't do much about people commenting about things. Inciting violence is wrong, and people need to say that. And I have actually never been so proud as of last week when Kemi, I thought, led the response to Henry Novak and was very clear that we can provide solutions. We don't just have to rage. We don't just have to sit here and get angry. We shouldn't, sit there and just try and riot and cause violence and cause upset. What we should do is provide solutions to this problem, and that's what I felt she was doing last week, and that's what she continues to do.
It was Southampton that JD Vance commented on, wasn't it? Not the Belfast riots. Is there much we can do about what are essentially snuff videos out there?
Snuff video.
Kind of just violence against people. That's what they are. And yet the only way that we can think of to protect our children from it is a social media ban. It won't be total. People will get round it, that kind of thing. Are we just going to have to do better on educating them away from this stuff as much as banning it?
Well, I think that it's not healthy for young people to see this. We need to accept that, and for everybody to recognise what is happening, because social media is so hidden. Adults oftentimes don't see what young people are seeing, and it's awful. And people would be on the streets if they saw what a 13-year-old sees every single day. Real life violence, porn, constantly, over and over again, normalising it. And as I said earlier,
have you learnt more about it by going to
so
schools?
much more, so much, and also talking to young people, seeing what they see on the feed. There have been some amazing organisations that have set up profiles of being a 13-year-old boy and seeing what you then get served. But the thing is that we have tried through the Online Safety Act saying we're going to police content, and that doesn't work, and it has all kinds of free speech implications which we need to be careful about in this area, which is why I think actually policing age on these platforms is more sensible. Now, there's also obviously the issue of illegal content. That needs to be dealt with far better on these platforms than it is at the moment. But certainly where it comes to children, I think the easiest and cleanest way and the most effective way is just to take them off the platforms.
Is your sense that the government will go for that? Or do you just not have any clue
goodness
yet?
knows. If only we knew that they had some kind of principled or operating method, because they were really anti this, right? They were pushing against this. We heard that Keir Starmer didn't want to do it. Peter Kyle said this wasn't something that the government was looking into. And it was only...
But that doesn't make them bad people, because there are people who've lost children through this who don't
No, I'm just... Your point was whether they were going to do it or not. And I'm just giving you a little bit of background from where we started with this. They basically said that they weren't going to do it. And then because of the pressure that we put them under through the schools bill, they've managed to change their mind, I think, which is a very positive thing.
Could and should Keir Starmer, and perhaps David Lammy, because he has a good relationship with JD Vance, should they be much more vocal and muscular towards people like Vance and Musk when it comes to this? I mean, I understand that politically and diplomatically you want to do these things carefully, but when you've got people urging people to get out on the streets, and people will interpret that in all kinds of ways, won't they? Is it time for our Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary as well to just say, no, stop this. Look what you are adding to. Look what you are party to. Can they be that vocal?
Well, I think they have done with Musk. I think there's a really important differentiation between Musk and Vance, right? Because Vance is proposing a theory of what has happened and why, which we should be discussing. We should be saying, what are the reasons for this? Why do we think this has happened? What are we going to do about it? And then there's telling people to go and riot, which is obviously fundamentally wrong, shouldn't happen, is causing untold damage, distress, upset. So I think it's important to kind of differentiate between the two.
Not that different, though, is it? He blamed what happened in Southampton as in the killing. He blamed it on the, quotes, mass invasion of migrants. The only response was righteous anger. Now, again, you could say he's just saying be angry. But he's saying get angry at particular types of people, isn't he?
Yeah,
that's J.D. Vance.
And Kemi has actually said publicly that she disagrees with him, right? Which I think is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Just in a very calm, measured way. It is important, you say to your friends when they're wrong, and he's wrong on this.
But he's done it more than once, isn't it? I mean, is there nothing we can do about it? They just...
You're never going to stop people having opinions, right? And that's, in a way, it's important to say we fundamentally disagree with you. Like that, you should be able to do that in public life.
You've made it clear that you think Elon Musk is worse. If people have questions on Elon Musk, it'll be interesting to see whether they agree or not, because some of them, I've seen online just this morning, are pleased with his interventions. You know, the people who say it's got nothing to do with this, it's not just a one-off thing, it's all about immigration.
But setting people's houses on fire is not going to help that.
No, of course it isn't, of course. Can I ask you as well, just because it was mentioned earlier on by the Prime Minister, we know at the beginning of the week he talked about urging tech companies to use the technology to make it impossible for kids to share and receive nude images, often of themselves or other people. Should he have acted sooner on that?
I mean, of course, right? And he's actually not acting. Just he's saying that they have to do something, or he will act, maybe, at some point in the future with undefined legislation. So it's absolute classic Keir Starmer, like not actually doing anything. But the principle of it, I do actually support, because we need to make sure that children, when they use these devices, are safe. I think this probably will go towards where I do think we need to go in the longer term, which is having safe devices for children. Like, these are things that should be there for children. They should not be there for adults. So I think that is a direction that we need to go in over time.
People often say to me on these calls when we talk about migration that they actually point to the previous Conservative government, as much as they're frustrated with aspects of this one, and they are. They point to the previous Conservative government on immigration. And they say, you, the Conservatives in government, allowed it to get out of control. Keir Starmer can say they're still tackling the boats, but Keir Starmer can say net migration is materially down since, say, the pandemic. The latest figures, I think, alluded to the pandemic. They look... It's worth saying that the alleged offender in the Belfast case was given freedom to remain here, leave to remain here in the UK under a Conservative government. Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick were at the Home Office at the time. People sometimes say, you as a party can't be rehabilitated unless you apologise for that. Should the Conservatives apologise for that? Not necessarily this one instance, but the figures generally.
Yeah, I think we should, because I think that we got a lot wrong on immigration. I think the changes that we've seen to legal migration have been largely because of changes that we put in at the end. Yes, of course, they should have come sooner, I get that, but they are because of changes and tightening up that James Cleverly did when he was Home Secretary, which is very welcome. And then on illegal migration, we were trying to do Rwanda. Rwanda took way too long. We should have left the ECHR.
But a lot of that is asylum, isn't it? Which isn't illegal.
Yeah, but if you're talking... I mean, we've got to be careful. We can't talk about the individual case. But lots of people were given asylum that shouldn't have been given asylum because of the ECHR. These were people who we didn't want in this country, that the government said we don't want, that we have to take anyway. And
because of international law.
Exactly, because of the ECHR. And that is why it's party policy now to withdraw from the ECHR.
We'll go to calls in just a moment. The violence that we saw last night in Belfast, I hope I'm wrong, it may happen again tonight. People are taking precautions, kids out of school early, businesses closed, transport stopping. I mean, it's awful for anybody up close to it. What are your thoughts on it, particularly given the online element to this, of encouraging people to come and be a part of it?
I think it should scare all of us, and it should make all of us realise the importance of politics and getting policy right to stop things going on and stop people feeling frustrated. And if people don't feel like the political system is listening to them, then they will behave like this. But obviously the message from every single politician across the political spectrum needs to be, we have to act within the law. People can be angry, of course people can be angry, but we have to act within the law, and setting fire to houses helps absolutely nobody.
With people in them.
Exactly.
Yeah, shocking. We'll get to our listeners' callers in a moment. Laura Trott, Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative MP for Sevenoaks. Your question on online safety, any aspect of our online lives, which is a lot of our lives these days, on 0345 6060 973. It's 3:17.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
Why do you need consultation? Who's going to say no?
Straight to the point.
Let's see. Why let's see? This is what I don't understand.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Why won't they listen to the most successful living Labour Prime Minister? Arguably the most successful Labour Prime Minister of all time.
Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. Download it now from your app store.
With problem earwax, things don't feel quite right. The NHS recommends using olive oil to help relieve build-up, so Otex offers medical-grade olive oil in both drops and spray. But if you need to act faster, there's Otex Express. However you choose to treat it, choose the earwax treatment brand most recommended by pharmacists, and be clear to hear with Otex. Based on a survey of 200 pharmacies. For verification, visit otexear.com.
Serious about the right vitamins for you and your family? Trust Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company, for expert nutritional care for every age and lifestyle. Vitamins for everyone, including well man, well woman, well baby and well kid. From Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com. For #1 verification, see vitabiotics.com.
Guys, gals and non-binary pals, we're Copperfield, the breast cancer awareness charity. This is your reminder to check your chest. Learn how at copperfield.org.
5 across, full of positive swagger. Sorry, at HMRC we can't help you fill gaps in a crossword. But our new website can fill gaps in your pension and tax knowledge. Nothing cryptic, just simple explanations about the basics to help you get tax confident and understand how tax works in retirement. To learn more, search HMRC Tax Confident. Oh, that's it. Confident.
Shelagh Fogarty on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Don't forget you can watch us live on the LBC app, Global Player and on YouTube. I'll be joined by Lewis Goodall a little later. We'll return to Belfast. But with me for the next half an hour or so is Laura Trott, Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative MP for Sevenoaks, to take your calls on where we are at when it comes to online safety. Let's talk to Vishnu in Ealing, who has a question for Laura Trott. Hi, Vishnu.
Oh, hi there. Two quick things. First of all, if I might just comment on something which I think is normally missed out in a lot of discussions. It's always assumed when people come that they have already a cultural knowledge of the place they're moving to, that the adaptation will be easy and straightforward. I'd just like to comment on a practical example where it worked really well. The Ugandan Asians, when they came here, initially were massed in places where there was where I think the basic principles of these countries, although they already knew them, were rolled out and they were introduced to it, which really helped them assimilate very quickly. None of that happens with the current crop of people who might be coming, which means they have to pick up the British culture running, which is impossible.
Or don't pick it up at all.
Or don't pick it up at all, as it happens. The question I was going to ask, and I think what Cammy said, there was a lot of stuff in it, but obviously all the laws came in, not because people's hearts changed. They forced people to adapt non-racist views because there was very rampant racist at one time. And I agree with her that the current climate is still a lot better in terms of the racist behavior than it used to be in the 70s, which was very blatant and in your face. The question I have with regards to online where does it sit on the seesaw between parents bringing up their children and accessing information that's external to the house? Anyone who's brought up kids knows they have to prepare their house in a manner to protect the child. And a child, at what time, at what age, on the scale of human evolution, do we see people as being sufficiently educated or able to make critical decisions?
Okay.
That should be the basis of how we inform and how we deal with it.
Well, and it is a big age-related question that we're facing at the moment, isn't it? We're expecting to hear in the next 10 days or so from the government on what they've decided about a ban for under-16s. What would you say to Vishnu?
I think it's a really interesting question that Vishnu poses as to when you are an adult, right? And one of the things that we've talked about with this social media ban is the fact it will be at 16, because we picked that because of that stage, you know, you are emerging into adulthood, but technically you're an adult from 18, right? It could be a ban from there. And the government is talking about giving votes, for example, to 16-year-olds. And that is one of the reasons why I think it is really important, if that does happen, that they can look at social media. As Vishnu says, they can access the world, they can go around. But again, there's a debate in the government at the moment about how old you should be to be criminally responsible. So it's a really important issue, Vishnu, that you've picked up on.
It's 10 in England, isn't it? It's really young.
It is 10. I think that's probably right, but that's a long discussion. But Vishnu, I think the reason we have picked 16 is because A, you're going to have to vote from then, and B, if you think you are emerging into adulthood at that stage, that is the point at which you can take on more adult content. Your brain is much more developed. So that's why we picked 16.
Keir Starmer, as I said, poised to ban or not ban social media next week for the under-16s. Your calls to the Shadow Education Secretary, Laura Trott, on 0345 6060 973. Online safety is such an important issue, and one that we will not be dropping the ball on here at LBC. Lisa's call from Luton. Hi, Lisa.
Hello. My question is about racism. It's rising. We've got evidence galore, including going back as far as Macpherson, Lammy, Casey, about institutional racism. And yet, you, like Kemi Badenoch, say that you want to scrap the public sector equality duty. So, what would you do, speaking about education, about racism by government departments, specifically by Ofsted, which is a good example? Lots of reports of racism, but the lack of an independent complaint system means that many practitioners, their only hope is to make a claim under the 2010 Equality Act. So if you're going to scrap that, what will you do about racism by, for example, Ofsted?
OK, I don't think there's a suggestion to scrap the Equality Act, is there? It was about the public sector duty of equality. But do you want to answer Lisa's question?
Yeah, I think that's the point, Julia, that I was going to make to you, Lisa, that actually what we're proposing is to keep the Equality Act, which enshrines protection around your sex and your race, amongst other things, but get rid of the public sector equality duty. And that's where, I mean, it sounds very technical, but the public sector equality duty, what it does is it ensures that public sector bodies spend a lot of time finding out how their policies have impacted individuals as racial groups rather than individuals. And that's just fundamentally wrong. It doesn't mean that you look at individuals and what is happening to them. So we think that's the wrong way round. That's why we're doing it. This is why we're different from Reform. So you might be mixing us up with Reform, who do want to get rid of the Equalities Act wholesale.
OK, thank you, Lisa. If you call, Elias has called from High Wycombe. Hello, Elias.
Yes, hello there. I'd just like to say I can't understand how so much made-up stuff regarding racism, again, is allowed on the media. And mainly, most of these is coming from the Reform parties. Surely a party, they're like a main party in today's world, OK? So how can a main party be allowed to just blatantly lie all the time, consistently? That's half the reason why they've done so well in the election, because they're just full of media, completely of lies. Surely,
are you talking about misinformation that leads to things like Southampton?
Well, yes, they've obviously taken advantage of that situation, but just in general.
And
just in general, stupid, ridiculous, made-up stuff about everything.
Is your question to the Shadow Education Secretary, Laura Trott, about whether the law can do more for misinformation online, whoever is guilty of it?
Yes.
Okay, let's see what she says.
So, Elias, there's a lot online, as we know, which is like total nonsense and complete rubbish. And what I've tried to do throughout this, pushing this social media ban for under 16s, is to try and protect young people from that. Because we've seen, for example, a record number of referrals to Prevent, which is an anti-terrorism initiative. And that is because young people are seeing extremist content the whole time online, and they're really vulnerable to it. So I'm very pro free speech for adults. Adults should be able to debate, talk about things, talk about different ideas. They've got much better ability to be able to differentiate like things that are just total nonsense, which you're right, a reform does put a lot out of, which is total nonsense. But they're much better at differentiating that than young people are. And that is why we need to get young people off social media.
You've mentioned a couple of times this deluge that you find young people are facing. Paige has texted to say, I question how young people are seeing such violence and pornography online to begin with. I don't see it, says Paige, because I haven't searched for it. Surely there's something else going on with young people that has this material turn up in the first place.
So this is such a good question from Paige. And this is the fundamental misunderstanding that lots of people have about social media, because they think, oh, you know, my lovely Henry, he'd never search for pornography online. He'd never do that. And the problem is that the algorithm serves it to them. All this horrible content that people are seeing, it's not because they're looking from it, by and large, although some of them obviously are, but most of them aren't. It's just what gets served up to them. And I talked earlier before about when you set up a profile as yourself as a 13-year-old boy, the stuff you get is just awful. And it's completely different to the things that I get, right? Like when I go on Instagram, I see lovely fashion accounts and things that I should be doing for my house. Like, it's very different.
Do we have the same Instagram account? I think we must, yeah.
And that's why people aren't worried, because they're not seeing the content that young people are seeing, which is grim.
And also, we've had reporters here who've gone online as an exercise and pretended to be a 13-year-old girl or boy. And the stuff you then start to see, but and the grooming attempts and things like this, it's
terrifying.
Prolific. Yeah.
It's really, and it's really worth looking up for people that are listening. Some of the work that LBC have done on this, the NEU have done it, where you actually have done like a dummy account, and all the awfulness that comes as a result is really quite frightening.
Bart in Basildon. That sounds good, doesn't it? Poetic. Bart in Basildon. He's not convinced at all about a social media ban for under 16s. What a load of lefty, softy rubbish. I bet you've never been accused of that before. Banning under 16s from social media because of violence. What will you want to ban next, says Bart. Convince Bart.
So, Bart, I wonder whether Bart has children. Because quite often, as I said, it's people that don't see what young people are having to endure every single day. And the stress that they are under, the content that they're seeing, the damage that it's doing to them, which is really quite extreme.
And sometimes that's even within their own little social group at school.
Exactly.
It spills out into their
exactly
lives,
that.
doesn't it?
It's just on so many levels, it is dreadful. And I wish I could tell you, Bart, that parents could just deal with this on their own. If I came on here and said, oh, parents should just be putting on a filter, you'd have, honestly, the entire listenership of LBC shouting it, because it's a collective action problem. And that is why the government has to step in, because as a Conservative, I believe very strongly in free speech. I've mentioned it numerous times here. I mention it all the time, but not for children.
It's interesting here. Matthew has sent a text saying the hypocrisy here is palpable. Children are what I think is directed at both of us. Children are watching the news each day when they're witnessing children being killed daily in Gaza. Focuses specifically on Gaza. Obviously, there are children being killed elsewhere as well, sadly. Shall we now ban the BBC and other news outlets for children? Well, the difference there is that the online content is unmediated and grotesque and awful. I mean, it's happening. It's not, much of it isn't false. Some of it's false. Much of it is not. That's the difference. Television and news media and proper news websites mediate their content.
Exactly. Established sources where what you're seeing is true and it is appropriate for an age group that will be tuning in at a certain time. right? Everyone goes nuts on the TV. If, like, on X Factor, you know, you had a vaguely provocative song before 9 p.m, right? Like, the stuff that children are seeing online, which we all agree they shouldn't be seeing.
But they're two different worlds, aren't they?
Exactly. And we should be thinking that children should be safe online as they are offline. We put all these protections offline. Let's put them online too.
More of your calls to Laura Trott, Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative MP for Sevenoaks on online safety. That big issue of the under-16 social media ban that may or may not be brought in as government policy in the next 10 days to a fortnight. We don't know exactly what the government will decide. That is one of the biggest issues, I think, of the day. Your thoughts on it, your questions for Laura Trott as well on online safety. 0345 6060 973. It's 3:32. Time for some headlines from Matt Hewitt.
A man's been charged with offences including riot after violence on the streets of Belfast last night. The family of the man who lost an eye in a knife attack in Belfast on Monday say disorder in response to the stabbing is not welcome. 30-year-old Sudanese refugee Hadi Alodid has been remanded in custody, charged with the attempted murder of Stephen Ogilvie. Two men from Afghanistan and Sudan who steered overcrowded boats full of migrants to the UK have each been jailed for around 2 years. They're the first people sentenced for a new offence of endangering others during a channel crossing. And Iran has carried out attacks on US military bases in Jordan, Kuwait and Bahrain in retaliation for American strikes that hit 2 reservoirs. The US was responding after an Apache helicopter was shot down yesterday near the Strait of Hormuz. LBC weather, blustery showers with possible thunder in northern and eastern areas. Some pleasant sunny spells too. Top temperature 11 to 16 degrees.
This is LBC.
Fever Tree Mediterranean Tonic Water. Who are you? Usually the mixer, the T in G&T, but your delicate fragrance, hints of lemon thyme. When the tea's this good, do you even need the G? Fever Tree, straight up or mixed. It's a matter of taste.
Tackles the crunch and theatrical diving, rivals on terraces sobbing and crying, last minute winners that change everything. These are a few of our favourite things. When you're singing, yet not winning, when your bet's gone bad, we simply remember our favourite things and then we'll feel so glad.
For all your favourite things, visit BetVictor. 18 plus gambleaware.org. Please gamble responsibly.
Rotimi likes PensionBee's modern approach to pensions.
I think PensionBee has brought pensions into the 21st century, firstly, through the use of technology. Signing up to the app is super simple. PensionBee makes me feel very confident about my finances and makes me feel like I have a plan when it comes to my retirement.
At PensionBee, we believe that when your pension is in a good place, you're in a good place. Download the app or go to pensionbee.com and be pension confident. When investing, your capital is at risk.
Guys, gals and non-binary pals, we're Copperfield, the breast cancer awareness charity. This is your reminder to check your chest. Learn how at copperfield.org.
Get unlimited video calls with vets from First Vet with Pets in a Pickle. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinappickle.co.uk.
Serious about the right vitamins for you and your family? Trust Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company for expert nutritional care for every age and lifestyle. Vitamins for everyone, including well man, well woman, well baby and well kid. From Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com. For #1 verification, see vitabiotics.com.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC with Shelagh Fogarty. Text 84850.
I am with, in the studio, Laura Trott, the Shadow Education Secretary, and a small fly that's just invaded the table as well. Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative MP for Sevenoaks. Sam, also from Sevenoaks, says, should YouTube be included in the scope of a proposed social media ban for under-16s?
1,000,000% yes. Okay. So it is. There's rumours at the moment that this is not going to be included, and that will be an enormous mistake because, firstly, it's just not fair. And secondly, if we think about a lot of the harms that are happening, they're happening on YouTube. This is what we're seeing over and over again because it is the most used app, right, by young people. So it definitely needs to be included.
In what way is it the worst place for the harms?
So it's firstly in terms of the attention span. So you're seeing stuff for a very short period of time. Also, the algorithm leads you down this like horrible vortex into nasty stuff. We've seen it at LBC have shown that, and other organisations. So it is absolutely something that needs to be included.
It's interesting because we had a call from a parent on this when we talked about it just a couple of weeks ago about YouTube specifically, and he said, well, hang on, I've got two sons, age 14 and 17. Both of them use YouTube and they use it well. One of them is using YouTube to make money in a perfectly legitimate way, and I don't want to take away that avenue for him to succeed and to thrive and to make some money and to get the work ethic. Are we going to have to throw some babies out with the bathwater here, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, look, there are some people who use it and use it well and use it safely, but I would argue that they are in the minority. And also, we are talking about 16 and not 18 here. So at the age of 16, fill your boots as much as you want. But before then, I think it is just, as I said, the content's not safe, the algorithm's not safe.
And again, there was a great caller to LBC the other day who knew his tech stuff, and he was saying he's going to be interested to see exactly how the government defines what social media is. Yep. Because you look at games, for example, a lot of games are social media. You can engage with strangers on games. You look at Roblox, which I know is a very popular one. Is there a danger that we don't broaden the net wide enough, or that we broaden it too wide and we just mollycoddle kids who could use these tools really effectively and well?
Yeah, I think how I would do it if I was putting it forward is I would have a principles-based approach for the types of things that would be in this that is included on the social media definition, right? Strangers being able to contact you, algorithm
big
content.
No-no.
Yeah, exactly. So
nudity, big no-no.
Exactly. So think about all those things, and then you then have the ability to exclude individuals. For example, like Wikipedia, you wouldn't want included in all of this.
Because?
Well, because it's not really social media. Right?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just to be clear. Suddenly there's some horrible danger on Wikipedia other than them saying that I'm married to Josh Brolin and worth 8 million. I wish.
Wouldn't it be nice?
It would be. I presume he's nice. Are there any things that you would want to ban, say, more than YouTube? Thinking of Roblox, for example. Lots of parents have big
I'm really worried about gaming. I'm also really worried about AI chatbots, which are really problematic. We know of cases
AI girlfriends.
Yeah, but also AI chatbots have told children to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Right? It is extraordinary. And again, you wouldn't really believe it, would you, that this could happen? But it's happening right now.
Well, in America, they found some toys that had a little AI capacity in the tummy of the teddy, say, but then it started to say, do this, do that, do violent things. So it's obviously
it's terrifying. It's completely terrifying. And we all know that AI hallucinates. We know that it sometimes comes
Explain that.
So it says things that aren't right. It says things that aren't true. And it does this on a regular basis. And we're talking about, by the way, putting AI in schools at the moment. Right, AI tutors. It's absolutely crazy. This is government policy at the moment. They're saying on one hand that social media is dangerous, but they're putting AI tutors into schools for some of the most deprived children. Like, it's just bizarre and wrong.
Let's get some questions. Matthew's call from Stevenage. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, afternoon. You mentioned, Laura, at the start of this segment that the OSA hasn't worked. Now, what I'm really interested in is what makes you think that this ban will be any different whatsoever. Ultimately, I just don't think any of the MPs that are talking about this actually understand how the technology works and understand that if you try and ban something like this, all it'll do is it'll push people to sites that aren't actually taking, the rules into account, which has already happened with the Online Safety Act. It doesn't take into account the fact that people can just use VPNs. It doesn't take into account the fact that if you want to submit your ID and things like that, and we've seen this already, you're submitting it to third-party companies, it's being leaked, it's being hacked. It just doesn't make any sense. So what's realistically, actually, practically going to be different between the OSA and this?
So really good question, Matthew. The bit of the Online Safety Act that has been quite effective is actually age verifications for pornography sites, where we have seen the number of children accessing those go down quite dramatically. So I think we have an example of where age verification has been effective in this country already. You're right about VPNs, and we would have to age-gate VPNs as well as part of this. The other thing I would say, though, is that what I'm looking to do as part of this policy is shift the culture. So obviously we have bans on cigarettes, we have bans on booze. There are, young people that flout those. But we know as a society, but those two things are not safe for children. And this is what this act is signalling. It's interesting because Australia, as many people will know, have already gone down this path, and they're in very early stages of implementation. But already we're seeing that over a third of children feel safer online as a result, right? And they haven't even fully rolled this out. So we know this can be effective. We know it can work. I think with the Online Safety Act, the thing that I think isn't quite right is every piece of content needs to be policed. I just don't think that is realistic. I think we're much better off saying children shouldn't be on this platform, but we're going to allow freedom of speech on this platform otherwise.
But I think fundamentally with the fact that I'm assuming it will be an ID-based check. I'm assuming it's going to be an ID-based check.
It's very important.
That will have exactly the same issues as OSA.
So it is very important. This does not require digital ID. That's not something that Australia have used, and we've been very clear about that. And as I said, we have age-based checks at the moment for pornography sites. They do not require digital ID.
How solid are they, those age checks?
Well, so actually it's interesting. I was talking to the regulator the other day about this, Ofcom, and they have said that actually it has been quite effective. They've seen a massive decrease in the number of children accessing pornography sites. So we do know this works. I think it's really important what Matthew said, though. It's not going to be perfect, and everybody needs to recognise this. And the Australian minister responsible was actually doing a round of media interviews this morning, which was saying exactly that actually it is having an impact. It's not affecting everybody. There are some people that are getting around it. But the other point is that social media is really unsafe as it is. Like, these awful sites they're talking about, how much worse are they?
I think as well, I'm for it, by the way. I'm for the social media ban. I think sometimes it's important to enculturate certain things.
Exactly.
They'll make them normal, make them part of the culture, which we do about all kinds of things, and people contravene them all the time. But if you enculturate it, you're at least giving someone a head start.
Exactly. We're trying to shift the cultural norm.
Yeah.
We're trying to say these things aren't safe for children. And that won't mean that no children will go on them, but it means that it will reduce the number.
And can I ask you this through the prism of a text that's come in, actually, because I think it's interesting. It's from John. He says, politicians are too scared of the online giants. They need to define these companies as publishers, which they are, and make the company directors personally and legally responsible for what they publish. Politicians won't do that because they fear the reaction and want the donations more than they want to protect children. Kids will always get around bans. Well, we'll leave that last bit alone. But that question about publishing, because they are publishers, aren't they?
Oh, this is such an interesting question, and it's a really interesting public policy question. My personal opinion is that a mistake was made initially in allowing these organisations not to be publishers and not to be responsible for the content that is on their site. If I'm being honest, I think the ship has sailed on that. I don't think anybody is going to be able to change that. You can't undo that. But what you can do, I think, is make sure that people are accountable for what they say on these platforms, and we need to do a better job of that.
The individual people or
people.
But the people publishing it, no?
So
they get away scot-free, whilst in Elon Musk's case, encouraging it.
Yeah, and he should be held accountable for what he is posting himself, right? But I don't think, from a public policy perspective, we're going to be able to get them to be now responsible for what is on their site because it's gone too far. But I do think we made a mistake early on. And I think it is really important that we don't repeat those mistakes where it comes to AI in the future, and we think about what they are responsible for and what they're not responsible for.
I remember a very long time ago speaking to Sir Tim Berners-Lee, in Boston, in MIT, and he was saying that when he discovered the World Wide Web, not the internet, but the World Wide Web, I asked him why he didn't sell it to someone, the highest bidder, and just get rich off. He may have got rich off the back of it, I don't know, but in a way, he said, I did not want something so powerful to be just sold to a few people and make them unbelievably powerful. I wanted it to be democratised and for people. Which is
an amazing man.
Amazing man. But he is seen as well with concern that where we've got to today on social media, and there is a degree to which the you're a shadow education secretary. A huge amount of this, whatever bans we bring in, has got to be about education, hasn't it?
I think it has to be to a certain extent. I think it is important that we protect children and we protect childhood.
Yeah.
So there are some people who would argue that you can't control the internet, and therefore we should let children see pornography and we should educate them about it at school. There are some people that say that.
No, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, no, I know.
The protections
So it's very,
for sure.
it's very.
But we've got to educate them about what it's not even just the direct education about the internet. It's about educating them about what their life can be.
Totally. And I think that is where we have to do better. I mean, schools are much better at this now, by the way, than they used to be. It's actually pretty good, some of the curriculum and some of what's going on. And anyone that's met like a young person now, they're so much more clued up than I was at that age.
And certainly than I would have been. Can I ask you about these AI-generated images of Nigel Farage fighting Andrew Bailey, just before you go?
That's so weird.
Sorry. What's where are they coming from? It's because some people are believing that this is... I'm so sorry, I've asked you a question mid-cough. Some people are obviously starting to believe that Nigel Farage and Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, have had a proper physical fist fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's driving everyone nuts who's on this platform. I mean, I'm on it, and all I see constantly is pictures of Nigel Farage, like, beating Andrew Bailey up. It's really weird.
Shouldn't laugh, but there are risks in it. You know, we can see it's not real, but people are starting to believe some of the stuff out there. It's a massive issue, isn't it? Well, thank you. We've run out of time, but thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Good to hear you. Laura Trott, Shadow Education Secretary and Conservative MP for Sevenoaks. It's 3:47. Lewis is next.
Coming up at 4 on LBC, Simon Marks.
Calls for calm tonight in Northern Ireland and questions about the porous border between North and South. And why do people respond to those who incite them to riot?
Simon Marks at 4. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Getting your dog or cat to the vet isn't always easy. But with pet insurance from Pets in a Pickle, you can have non-urgent consultations from home. Take out any policy with Pets in a Pickle and you'll get unlimited video calls with experienced vets 24/7 through First Vet. Much easier for you and your pets. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinappickle.co.uk.
With problem earwax, things don't feel quite right. The NHS recommends using olive oil to help relieve build-up, so Otex offers medical-grade olive oil in both drops and spray. But if you need to act faster, there's Otex Express. However you choose to treat it, choose the earwax treatment brand most recommended by pharmacists. And be clear to hear with Otex. Based on a survey of 200 pharmacies. For verification, visit otexhere.com.
McDonald's Taste of the Tournament has arrived. Get the Mexican Chipotle Chicken. 100% chicken breast smothered in smoky Chipotle and fiery Diablo sauce. Now that's what I call flair. The Mexican Chipotle Chicken. Bring it home with McDelivery. Until the 13th of July from 11 a.m. Fees apply to delivery orders. Price and participation may vary, subject to availability.
When you're smiling. Banning Dental Group clinics with over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
A message from TfL.
I saw him in the local news a few days after. His name's Rakesh. They had to put him into a coma just because I didn't look again at that turning. He had 2 kids. How did I not see his bike ahead of me? Well, I didn't look again. He didn't make it.
Drivers, take another look, not a life. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Get iPhone 17 in the Vodafone Business Summer Sale. iPhone 17 is built for business with all-day battery life and the powerful A19 chip for fast, efficient performance. Experience it all on the best network for business and save £300. Hurry, offer ends the 22nd of July. Vodafone Business.
Businesses with up to 9 employees only. Based on iPhone 17 and 24-month unlimited airtime plan. Best network is awarded at the Mobile Industry Awards. Saving calculated over 36 months.
This is LBC. Message Shelagh Fogarty on WhatsApp now on 0345 60 60 973.
We've finally pinned him down. Lewis Goodall, presenter of Sundays with Lewis Goodall on LBC and co-host of Global's podcast, The News Agents, is in Belfast for us. You can watch us live on the LBC app, the Global Player, and on YouTube as well. Lewis, very tough events overnight. What have you found so far since being there?
Well, I've reported from Belfast a fair number of times, including after there's been periods of violence. And what's sort of peculiar about it is that Belfast being Belfast, obviously a city and part of the UK, part of the island of Ireland that is not unfamiliar with political violence, not unfamiliar with the shadow of violence. What is striking is how similar and familiar it feels, and yet also how different. Because, of course, this isn't violence in the traditional Northern Irish sense between nationalists and between loyalists, between Republicans and between Unionists. Although there is, of course, inevitably a dimension of that in terms of who is involved. This is actually, in a sense, a very Northern Irish story, but it's also actually a story that we're seeing play out in cities across the UK, indeed across the British Isles overall. We've seen it in the Republic as well, time and time and time again. There is an incident, an horrific incident that involves either an immigrant or a refugee or whatever it happens to be, or whatever that person happens to be, and then that being seized upon, sometimes by people who, okay, fine, have legitimate worries and legitimate concerns, but the flames fanned, in some cases by political actors, thousands and thousands of miles away. And I've been speaking, I know you spoke to Matthew O'Toole earlier in the show, I've spoken to him as well, and I was extremely struck. A very senior Northern Irish politician talking about a pogrom in British streets, in UK streets.
Yeah, he used that word 3 times in my conversation with him, yeah.
Even in the long history of the Troubles and the internecine violence in Northern Ireland, we didn't see too many pogroms, certainly not of the sort where people were going door to door simply on the basis of the colour of their skin. And indeed, I know you've spoken to Andy Hughes from the crime agents as well. His, telling me when I arrived that, he literally witnessed last night a case where a group of hooligans, thugs, rioters were upturning a gentleman's car in one of the streets in East Belfast. He comes out, says, "What the hell are you doing to my car?" They see he's white, and they turn around and go, "I'm so sorry, my friend. We didn't realise." Now, there is a name. There is a name and there is a word for the perpetration of violence simply on the basis of the colour of your skin, and it can only be described as the most heinous form of racism.
Of course it is. And the city is bound to be on tenterhooks now. Kids were let out of school early. I know that in the next hour or so, public transport, various forms of public transport are going to be stopped or limited. Hopefully it pours down with rain. That might keep a few of them at home, the potential rioters. But do you get the feeling that it's a place on tenterhooks as you walk around?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that struck me most about being here today. Belfast in so many ways now, a tremendous success story, a very vibrant city, tremendously thriving in all sorts of ways. And you speak to people here, and it is extraordinary the extent to which that kind of second skin of the threat of violence, that shadow of violence, how familiar to people it can feel. So the thing that's been going on in Belfast all day that I've been so struck by, and again, this is a kind of twist, a modern twist on an old tale, is the number of people, whether it's taxi drivers, you walk up to people in the street, people come up to you, this exchange, this flurry of exchanges that are going around virtually every WhatsApp group. And Belfast isn't a huge city, so it's very easy for this stuff to be able to transmit very quickly. Basically, AI-generated images that can literally be mocked up in seconds, looking like official documentation, pictures look like official documentation saying these roads are going to be closed from 11 a.m. Everybody needs to get out. Everybody needs to shut their businesses. These schools need to close down. And of course, it's not official at all. And although the police and local politicians are saying, don't listen to them, there will be no road closures, there will be none of this, inevitably people see this stuff and they go, Jesus, I'm going to get out of town. We spend about 45 minutes going probably about 50 to 100 feet or something like that, because the roads were absolutely choked just to get out of the city, because people had all been seeing these same images, these JPEGs, these pictures that, as I say, can be generated using AI interfaces in a matter of seconds, and as a result look terribly official. And there's again a word for that, Sheila, as well, and that's terrorising people. It's terrorising people through the threat of violence that they think is going to come to a street near them.
When you saw the traffic, did you get that sense? Did anyone confirm to you they were getting the hell out for now?
100%. 100%. You could see that absolutely. And, you speak to taxi drivers that you're in, or people are sort of speaking to each other out of the window and so on. Absolutely. And this is obviously people, this will be Catholics, this will be Protestants, it'll be people who are not aligned. And that is, something that used to happen in the bad old days and is now happening again, or it has happened certainly today, simply because it's that sort of threat, that looming threat of political violence, but albeit in a new form.
I was talking to Laura Trott earlier on in the programme, the Shadow Education Secretary, and we discussed Elon Musk and indeed JD Vance over Southampton and some other comments he's made, and the kinds of contributions they make to this conversation. I mean, to say they're unhelpful is an understatement. I do wonder if it's time for leading politicians in this country to get much more vocal. I mean, we heard David Lammy say, didn't we? Yeah, I've had a word with so-and-so. I've mentioned it to JD Vance. I've suggested it's not helpful. I wonder, do we need to see them get tougher on those who would do this online?
I mean, one has to have some sympathy with the police and local authorities here, Sheila, and indeed wherever it happens, right? Because let's just take that Elon Musk tweet, which was amplifying Stephen Lennon's tweet, otherwise known as Tommy Robinson or otherwise known as Moscow Tommy. That was seen 7 million times. 7 million times that was seen. What's the authorities supposed to do in that situation when that sort of information is being percolated? Look, I'll say this. It should be possible within our discourse and our politicians, and I'm amazed that we haven't heard a little bit more about this from right across the spectrum. That attack, which is obviously now subject to criminal proceedings, was heinous and appalling and scary and disturbing. And I totally understand. And I think liberal politicians as well need to respond to the real fear that can exist when something like this happens, and not just talk in bromides, not just talk in cliches, not just start talking about diversity is our strength and we'll never let this defeat us and all of that sort of thing. It's too meaningless to people. People want to have more direct conversations, and that's completely legitimate. But it should also be the second breath should come, which is to say that nothing that has happened in the last 24 hours can ever be justified, ever. That both events are appalling and sinister and disturbing. And what is certainly not necessary in either case is for the world's most powerful, richest tech oligarch sitting thousands of miles away, an ocean and a continental landmass away, fanning the flames in a city about which he knows precisely nothing. I doubt Elon Musk would be able to point at Belfast or get anywhere near Belfast on a map. And yet there can be no doubt that his interventions are making what is already a bad situation, and let's not pretend that he invented it as such, what was already a bad situation, worse still. And that's the bit that Mr. Musk doesn't seem to understand. When he turns around and says, with some legitimacy, I didn't create this situation, I didn't let this guy into the country, fair enough, that's true. Politicians will have to make account for their policies and so on, and of course that's entirely right. But there can be no doubt that he is making a bad situation worse still. The old adage used to be that with power comes responsibility. It is absolutely clear that Musk has enormous power, and he has zero sense of the responsibility that ought to go with it.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Lewis Goodall, host of the Newsagents podcast. Don't forget the latest episode drops at 5 today, so in exactly an hour's time. Lewis is in Belfast there. If you missed any of the show today, you can listen back in the usual ways on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. Coming up at 6 on LBC, it's Andrew Marr, but now it's time for Simon Marks.
Thanks very much, Sheila. Nervous hours ahead then lie ahead in Northern Ireland and in other parts of the country. The Prime Minister leading calls for calm tonight.
The acts of violence and arson are totally unjustified. We are united in calling for calm and determined to restore order.
But after violence in Belfast, residents forced to flee their